Good morning, everybody. It's Positive Tuesday today, September 5th, 2023. Hey, our first show in September. For Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy, presented by Professional Exteriors and Interiors. With 20 years of experience, this locally owned and operated business provides quality work both on the inside and on the outside of your home or business. Like Fitzy and I, Brian believes it's the little things that make a big difference. You can give him a call to see what he can do for you today. The number's right there on the screen, 715-520-2271. Fitzy, good morning.
Good morning. I'm going to be a roofer tomorrow with him. He just doesn't know it yet, but he's going to do my roof tomorrow, and I'm going to be a roofer with him.
Wait a minute. Wait, tomorrow. Last week, you had said that he was coming out that day, wasn't he?
No, I think next week. It's today. It's tomorrow, I should say.
Well, which is it?
It's tomorrow.
Okay. For some reason, I thought you had said last week that he was coming out that day. Maybe it was just a look at it.
Maybe it was. But anyway, he's coming out. I'm going to be a roofer with him, so hope his team's ready.
I'm sorry. Why are you roofing with him? You know, you can.
I want to be a roofer.
You pay him. No, you don't. That job sucks.
And it's not as hot tomorrow. It's going to rain in the morning, so I got to call him and see what time he's going to start. Maybe we're not going to start till like 10 or 11.
Yeah, I agree, Derek. We should get a picture of that.
I'm sure we'll get pictures. Trust me.
That sounds absolutely terrible.
Yeah. Oh, no. I already took some shingles off the shed for him. I'm getting a head start.
Okay.
How are you? Anyway.
Well, fine, but, you know, I'm just concerned. I mean, we saw what happened when you were just trying to run a couple of years ago.
Wait till I climb the ladder on the roof.
Yeesh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have, unfortunately, some heavier stories to kind of get to this week. There's a fatal motorcycle versus car collision claims life in Barron County. There's two teenagers. Now, this is Burnett, but two teenagers died in apparent drowning. We also I wanted to get your takes just on some criminal charges filed against Danbury man and Burnett County officer involved shooting. Just kind of your perspectives about, do you pay attention to that stuff, etc. I want to kind of get into that a little bit. We've had, I think the last 2 weeks now, this will be our third week we've talked about, we've had a couple of deaths. It seems like we're averaging like two, since July 1st, like two a week. There was four within like a 24-hour period, which is, you know, absolutely heartbreaking. Good morning, Stacy and Dirk and Heather. But as always, we like to start with some sports questions because that's the one thing we know we can just have a little fun with. So, are you ready?
Yep, ready.
All right, so here's my question. College football started.
Okay.
If I'm not going to go through a whole long spiel about why each game was important, but which of these three games was the biggest surprise? Colorado beating TCU, 17th ranked TCU. That's Deion Sanders' coach team, Colorado. Number 8 Florida State over number 5 LSU. Or Duke, unranked Duke over number 9 Clemson. Which of those three were you the most surprised by?
I watched all of them except the Colorado game because I think that was Thursday night, wasn't it? I think that was Thursday or Friday night.
No, that was Saturday because I don't have ESPN right now. Stupid Spectrum. I can't watch a lot, but it was on Fox.
Don't have internet, they'll shut us right down. Right?
Well, right, I do actually. No, that was a Saturday on Fox.
Oh, I don't remember watching that one.
It was 45-42. It was such a.
Probably roughing. I was roughing probably.
Probably actually, yeah. No, it was a great game. So, which of those three were the biggest surprise?
Hands down, Duke last night winning. I mean, that was a big. When you can go in, you're unranked and beat a top-ranked team like that, a Clemson team that, you know, and it was. I watched the first half of that game, and it was good. They played tough and played good football, and it was interesting.
So you watched part of it. So again, that was probably on ESPN.
Probably was.
Right. So I can't watch it. But I looked at the box score, and you know I love box scores, specifically baseball box scores, because you can tell the whole game by reading the box score when you get good at kind of learning how it is. Football box
game? 20 runs last night.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. But football box scores aren't the same. I looked at that Clemson Duke box score this morning, and Clemson won in everything. They had the most first downs, the most passing yards, most rushing yards, the time of possession. I mean, they beat them in every single facet with the exception of one. That was turnovers. They both had 2 fumbles, but Clemson threw an interception. So they only had a +1 in the turnover ratio. And to see the score 28-7, it's what happened. And since I don't have Sports Center, I can't even watch like the highlights or recap. So I have no idea. So what happened in that game? Why in the world did that score end up that way?
That quarterback for Duke, who was also a college basketball player, could have played for Duke basketball. He just played tough. I mean, and their defense stopped them on 3rd down and 4th downs. It was just a good football game, and that's what I wanted to see. So by far, I mean, everybody wants Deion Sanders, and everybody wants that to be the story. And it was the story for a little while. But
it was, but the question was the biggest surprise. Thing
Right.
is, that didn't surprise me that much.
Right. Yeah.
But the
surprised
Duke game, yeah,
haters.
that's the right answer, I think. Yeah.
The haters are the ones that are upset about that one, or the biggest surprise. The Florida State game, I watched a little bit of that game. I'm back and forth, and that's 2 ranked teams that can go. That should be a coin flip.
But
and that's
Florida
what it was.
State beat the snot out of them. They got moved up to the rankings, the number 2 now. We could be watching the next. Anyway, that's going down a rabbit hole there. Florida State's legit.
Yeah, I think they were, but I'm sure everybody is. But my question is on college football: do you think it's good or bad for college football to have all of these lopsided games? I mean, besides the 3 we talked about,
Holy cow.
every other game was lopsided.
Oregon scored over 80 points. I was looking through the scores, and there was some like 70, 80 points. It's what's going on.
Right. Is that good for college football?
That's tough to answer because college football doesn't have exhibition games, preseason games like the NFL. And NFL, when they moved to 17 games, they reduced their 4 preseason games down to 3 for player safety, etc. But college football doesn't have those. So the first game, first 1 or 2 is like an exhibition. Sometimes, like Florida State, 8th ranked, LSU, 5th ranked, they get that out of the way right away. But most teams, like this is kind of an exhibition. You're playing a cupcake team. You should blow them out of the water. So I don't think it's bad for NCAA. I don't think it's bad for college football in week 1. If it's week 5, then okay, that's a problem. That's a problem. What do you think?
Right. I think it is. I mean, I think they've got to put some game, and they had some games here. That really the Monday night game, I think they got lucky that primetime game on Monday night with nothing else on, that Duke, put up they should have ran over Duke. Clemson should have beat Duke hands down. They didn't, so that's good. And then you have the 5 versus 8, and next week I think there's Alabama plays Texas, and that's the game of the week. I mean, that's a 4 versus 11, but that's it. I mean, the other games are, even the Badgers and everybody else. I mean, it was just like, how do you fill a stadium for 80,000 people and then score 80 points and let Oregon do that? I mean, I know, how is that fun, and is that worth it? And I think they got to move it to the middle. I mean, I don't want them to go to 1 versus 2 right away, but they got to move it to the middle and play some decent games.
Sorry, you're a Michigan Wolverines fan, right?
Yeah, I like Michigan.
Have you looked at their schedule? They should be 10-0 because they're playing a bunch of junk teams. We won't even know if Michigan's any good until the last 2 weeks of the season.
When they play Ohio State, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the last game, I think.
Right.
Right, so I'm just saying. And remember, there's like 120 college teams.
Yeah.
And everybody with free agency, a.k.a. transfer portal, but let's call it for what it is, free agency. Everyone could just leave and go anywhere they want, so they're just stacking all these teams. So I think we're going to see this a lot more going forward. So I guess that answers your question. No, I don't think it's really, really good. Now, if you're a fan of that team that wins by 80-7, sure. But even then, is it really that exciting? Do you really want to go to the game?
We're just lucky the NFL starts on Thursday.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Stacey said go. I think she means Packers, or maybe she means. No, she doesn't. Packers. I do have a question at the very end of the show. I want to ask you your predictions for the Bears-Packers coming up this Sunday on Fox, thankfully, so I can watch it. Freaking ESPN. All right, so we have, unfortunately, some heavier topics to get to here, and we'll do that in 15 seconds after a word from Spooner Health.
Satisfaction surveys and in conversations with patients, they appreciate the fact that staff got to know them. Staff really took their preferences into account, and they just feel grateful that they are being cared for as a person.
To learn more about our services, visit SpoonerHealth.com.
All right. So starting in Barron County, this was a press release from you. Our headline was "Fatal Motorcycle versus Car Collision Claims Life in Barron County." For people who didn't see that on your Facebook page or on Drydenware or anywhere else, tell people what that situation was and what happened.
Yeah, we had a car accident on Saturday afternoon, and a motorcyclist a car pulled out from an intersection and struck a motorcycle, and the motorcyclist passed away from his injuries. I mean, I don't want to say it's as simple as that, but it is. I mean, it's just a tragic accident. I don't know where we reconstructed it. We shut down the highway. Barron Fire was there, LifeLink, a highway department. And it's just our hearts are with the family. I mean, it's just a tragic thing. There wasn't intent. There wasn't alcohol involved. There wasn't anything like that involved. It was just pulled from a stop sign and didn't see the motorcyclist. So, I don't know the complete details of it, but that's, what we reported in the press release. And I don't know if there's other contributing factors. That's what hang on. That's what the reconstructionists will determine, and things like that. So is that a lot of people have complaints on that intersection of 8 and Highway O, which is between Barron and Cameron. They put up some lights there to let people know, the people on Highway 8, that there's a car at the intersection. I don't know. Not crazy about that. A lot of people want a roundabout, a stoplight there. They said that's the busiest. I don't think there's been. I've got to look. Somebody said that's the most accidents intersection in the county. I don't believe that. A lot of people compared it to V and 53 before they built the interchange.
Yeah.
We had a lot of accidents at V and 53. So, we look at that. The state will look at that. It's not my decision. I don't get a say in it. So the state will look at it. I assume my phone will ring pretty soon asking me what I think about it. And, I don't know. I think this is going to be a driver thing. I don't think they didn't look and see the motorcycle. I don't know that that's the intersection's fault. I don't know that it's a flat intersection. It's not a hill. It's not. I understand the speed's at 55, but we all pull from intersections all the time. Every county road is 55. Every road that crosses M and 48 and everything is 55. So I don't have an answer for it. I feel bad. I don't like it. There is accidents. When we have accidents, they are, they are bad when somebody at 55 pulls out in front, especially a motorcyclist. So, and there's been a lot of motorcycle accidents. Yeah. So I don't have much to comment. So,
I want to just ask about you may get a call and you said the state. Who would this be? Let me back up.
Right.
So that V, what did you say? It was V and what?
53 and V.
Yeah.
Interchange.
Is that Hagen? Is that the one? Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was a whole bunch there. Right. So who comes in and who makes that decision? Department of Transportation? And did they call you and ask you your thoughts when this happened? That was quite a few years ago now that happened. What is that phone call like when you get that call? Don't know if that's going to be the same situation for this intersection that you're talking about on Highway 8 and O, but what was that like? What kind of questions did they ask you?
Sure, they call for just about every fatality that we have, unless we really know it's alcohol as a contributing factor because they can't do anything. They always call and say, hey, is this intersection related? Is there something we can do to help? Is it, so yeah, they call. We have a DOT local rep that comes to we have a traffic safety committee that's that the county has to have, the state has to have. We're required to have it. We meet 4 times a year. Members from the DOT come to that meeting, police chiefs, county board. I don't remember who else is on that, but off the top of my head. But and then we talk about safety issues and we make complaints and we make recommendations. The highway committee, the highway commissioner's on it, and so he'll say, I think we should reduce the speed, or I think we should. And they say, yeah, we have to do a traffic study. To do anything, we have to have a study, which I don't agree with, but that's what the state does.
Wait, slow down. Why?
Because I don't think
you agree with.
Well, I don't think we need to have a study on every time we want to make a change. We have to have a study. The state does. And I think there's enough expertise in the room when you have something like that, when you have DOT people, highway commissioners, sheriffs, chiefs of police, whoever. in the room, I think you can make some logical decisions for your county, but they always have to have a study if it involves a state highway. And
What do you think the study has to be done only to be able to use those resources? In this case, financial resources. Is that the reason?
yeah, and just because I think people make complaints and say I want the speed to be 25 on Highway 8. Well, it's not logical. They have certain number of intersections that have to be, driveways before you can build a bridge, and they have all kinds of rules, legal rules, things they should have. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying we don't need to study every time, but they'll ask if we should do a study, and they may look at this. We can go to Community Maps, which is a public site, and people can look up how many accidents are in Barron County or any county in the state of Wisconsin.
What's it called?
Wisconsin DOT.
Yeah.
And then you look at Community Maps, and you click on Community Maps, and you can look at every accident, how many fatalities. That was our 7th fatality. Plus we have 5 wreck fatalities. So we're at 12 deaths right now in the county that we've handled this year, which is a lot. And somebody asked me if that's a lot of traffic deaths. I'm like, yeah, I think we were at 6 or 7 last year, and I don't think we had more than one one wreck death last year. So we're up a lot if we have 5 wreck deaths, and we still have a snowmobile and 4-wheeler season to get through. But our 4-wheeler accidents have been on the trail. So a lot goes into these questions, and they call us. I don't want to say every fatality, but a lot of fatalities, they'll call me and just say, hey, do you think it's a road? Do you think it's a lighting issue? Do you think it's is there a bump in the road? Is there what could we do different?
And what is currently at Highway 8 and O? You said they put some lights or something?
A stop. They put a light, so when a car pulls up on Highway O, a light flashes on. Hey, there's Dirk. He
put in a link. Well, I can't click that link. But other people can. I'll be clicking on that. Thank you so much, Dirk. As soon as the show's finished, I wouldn't mind seeing that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's really, you can tell every county in Barron County, you can tell how many accidents were last year versus this year.
Wow.
And we'll look at that. You can look at just that specific intersection. And so we'll look at that at our traffic safety meeting. But there's a light that flashes, so the people on Highway, on Highway 8 know that there's a car at the intersection.
Highway 8 or Highway O? Or
Highway 8 flashes. Highway 8 has a sign that says there's a vehicle at the intersection ahead. Never seen that before. They just installed them last year.
I didn't even know that existed.
Either did I. I don't know that I like it because it creates a false sense of security. Because if it doesn't flash and all of a sudden there's a car there, and I don't know if it flashed. I mean, now that I don't know.
Oh, sure.
I just don't know. I get it, but that's a flat stretch. So it's not like there's a hill. Like I get it if there's a hill.
And maybe you get too reliant on it. If you're on that often enough, it's like, well, the thing wasn't flashing, so okay.
Right. It's just like a railroad track. I mean, we'd love to have flashing things, but then we just like, well, let's give her. There's no flashing light.
Right.
So we become somewhat dependent on lights and technology, and that happens with anything. So
I know, but we've talked about it before. Like we need at a stoplight when the power goes out. Or the lights go out, they just start flashing yellow, or maybe they're just off completely. You rarely see a lot of crashes in that intersection when that happens, because everyone is like hyper aware, like the lights aren't working, so everyone is okay. Slow down, let's look who's going. Just saying, and if there are crashes, that's like little bumper to bumper type crashes, but you usually don't see someone who's like, hey, lights are out, screw it, I'm booking it. We can usually figure that out. So to put a bow on this one, what do you suggest if they called you today, and without even really looking at a lot of the data yet, just your first initial response, does there need to be a change at that intersection right now? And you can change your mind, of course.
I don't know the answer. I wouldn't say without looking at the data.
Okay.
I can't make
That's
that.
Smart.
It doesn't seem like there's a lot of crashes, but I do have 2 more things I want to talk about this accident about, though.
Oh,
I
please
want to
go
talk
ahead.
about closing the road. We had to close Highway 8 for 3 hours. So we literally put up barricades. The highway shop came out on a Saturday, put up barricades, road closed, put cones up. We had, I bet you, a dozen to 20 cars go around the barricade, basically into the ditch and around the barricade, and then we had to stop what we're doing, walk to the car and say,
what are you doing?
He's like, I'm trying to turn left. And I get there's not a good detour because it was in a bad spot, but I can't let you drive through our reconstruction scene. They're like, I'm just trying to turn left. I'm just trying to get to Barron. I'm just trying to get you. When the road is closed, the road is closed. We should have written tickets, but we didn't have enough cops available to do our job and help people and save people and do our job. I would have loved to cite every one of those people that drove around the sign.
Well, hold on. Now you got an election coming up pretty soon. You can't say that.
Yes, I can, because that is dangerous. It's not safe. When we close the road, our reconstruction guys are out there with this thing that they reconstruct, our state patrol. So I just don't go around signs. I get it's a hassle. I get you got to take time, and maybe you're in a hurry or headed somewhere. I get it. It's not. We didn't do it intentionally. We'll open up the road as soon as we can, as soon as we get the cars out. We had flashing lights, a fire truck, 2 cars, state patrol, squad cars, and people drove around and said, I'm just trying to turn left. I'm just trying. I bet you it happened. I never seen it happen so much.
The audacity. That's just crazy. Like, I've done that before. But first of all, when there's no police around, there's nobody there, you just see road closed and through traffic. I'm like, well, no one's around. It's 10 o'clock at night. Screw it. I'm just going to go through. Not saying that's right. That's wrong.
Right.
But I wouldn't still not do that if it's like, okay, clearly there was a crash here. All these first responders are all here. It's closed. I mean, who would actually think, doesn't apply to me? I mean, come on. How much is a ticket for doing that?
I don't know the answer to that.
Whatever it is, it should be tripled.
Yeah, it should be triple. I get it. It was just an odd thing, because it normally happens. You usually get 1 or 2 that try to, and maybe they were going to their house, and so you kind of wait because there was a couple driveways, and maybe they, I get it. If you live there, you got to go around it to get there, and I understand that. But these people pulled all the way up to our scene, and I just want to get through. I'm like, no, you can't do that. So otherwise, we'd let you. We don't want to close the road. It's easier for us to not close the road and have 2 highway guys come in on their Saturday and put up these signs. It's a lot easier. So anyway, my last comment was somebody on Facebook, and I shouldn't even comment about this, but put a comment, and we talked about comments the other day, that said I should quit being a politician and do my job. So I don't.
What was that about? Was it about the crash?
About the crash.
What did you put?
I didn't put anything. They just said if I should stop being a politician.
No, I mean, they had to respond to, they had to comment on something. What were they commenting on? Did you put up a post that said, hey, it's closed down for a while or something?
No, I put, it was just on the post about the accident.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Like, what was it? What were they? Oh, got it. It was just about the crash.
And he had some comment about the crash and looking both ways. And if I quit being a politician and do my job, and I almost put, what would you like me to do? Our traffic stats. I just looked at our traffic stats because I thought, maybe I'm not saying I'm perfect. I never have come on this show and said, I'm perfect. I never need to do anything. I love input. I take that as input instead of criticism. And so I went and looked at our stats this morning because I'm like, I wonder if our stats are exceeding last year. So we're out there doing our job. And my job is to do things like this. My job isn't to go out there and, stop cars and do that. Although I do that too. I see I had 22 traffic stops this year already.
Boy. Look at you.
Look at me in 9 months, in less than 8 months, I had 22 stops. So, I was like, you know what? I get this show to take a shot once in a while. So,
well, I understand what it meant. Like being a politician. What did you infer by that? Because somebody can apply something, and then how you receive it is called infer.
Enough for traffic enforcement is how I took that. It's like, we're not doing enough to stop speeders and to do this.
Okay.
And this is a racetrack. And I'm like, we stop a lot of cars. We're actually up this year in stopping cars. So, like I said, even I've stopped 22 cars this year on my way to and from work or to and from calls.
Yeah, and that's 22 more to be perfectly honest, that's 22 more than the expectation of a sheriff. Because ironically, your job literally is to actually be a politician and to be a leader, because you are an elected official. That's how it works. You're supposed to come on the show. You're supposed to send out press releases. You don't want your brand new part-timer just out of cop school putting out press releases. You have to inform people. So what they're implying, or at least how we're inferring it, is that had you been out there, specifically you, right? Because it was you should you should be out there busting speeders, right?
Or inferring that I should quit being a politician and be better. I don't know.
Well, there you go. See, Mike Schaefer. If you have a CNA shortage or something, not CNA, I don't know if they have. If you have any kind of a shortage in any staff at all at Spooner Health, stop being the CEO and get down there, man, and start working.
Right.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That guy, I don't know who he is, but he's a moron. Oh, hey, speaking of Mike Schaefer, there you go. Get to work, Mike.
He just likes us to say his name, and then he comments.
That could be. That could be. Oh, and by the way, Rick and Alicia's telling good morning. Congratulations. Baby, I believe they just had a baby overnight. Sorry, I don't mean to spoil it all for everybody, but I just did. Live show. Can't edit that. Sorry.
You got some good inside information.
I do. Yeah.
No, we were commenting how great you are, Mike. Don't worry about it.
Yep, that's it. No reason to go back and listen.
Seriously, don't.
Seriously, please don't. All right.
All right, so that'll take care of that one. So yes, then hats off to our team again for all that they do and dealing with these fatalities and So
then we're gonna have to replace you as okay, that's funny, Stacey. I like that. Come a road cop, then you wouldn't have to hire one. See, perfect answer. See, solve the problem right there. We solve all the problems.
I can.
Okay, let's move on. So this next one I'm bringing up simply because there was in the press release from the Burnett County Sheriff's Office, they had listed, thanking agencies that were involved or assisted. Headline was 2 teenagers die in apparent drowning in Burnett County. I believe, again, this was, I think, Friday night or Saturday. So this was around that same time the crash was. There was 4 deaths within about a 24-hour period between Burnett and Barron. What role do you guys play in this? There were 2 18-year-olds, I believe, from Minnesota. I can't remember where right now. I should have probably printed the press release. There we go. 2 18-year-olds. I mean, that's just, tragic so much. You just went through a situation similar to this in Chautauqua Lake, wasn't it? A couple of months ago, 2 people had died. Obviously, wildly different circumstances, but these are 2 18-year-olds that drowned. What role does Barron County play in something like this?
So I got a call Friday night from our rec deputy saying he was requested, our boat was requested, our sonar equipment was requested for a possible drowning in Burnett County. I said, can you go? He's like, yep, I'm already hooked up to the boat. I just want to get permission to go. I'm like, yes, you got permission to go. It's not you don't think about it. I'm like, if we have to fill your shift, I'll come in and work or whatever,
No, you're not going to work. You're a politician. What are you talking about?
Politician.
I'm not working. Right. I'll call someone else.
That's right. I'll call a real cop.
Oh.
So anyway, we obviously our team went over there and helped with the search with our equipment on our boat. Hats off to Tracy. She had a crazy night. I called her. I shouldn't say I called her. I sent her a text saying, you need some people. I got people. Your people might need a break. You just went from a drowning to a shooting to some other stuff they had going on. And I'm like, if your team needs a break, we're on our way over. And because that's a lot to it. I get drownings are bad. Death is bad. We deal with that way too much. But 2 18-year-old kids, that sucks. That takes some, and then to have I think it was an 18-year-old allegedly shot somebody or the shooting, whatever.
Well, right.
We got too many kids doing things that we shouldn't be doing here. And that's tough. I don't care how tough you are. 2 18-year-old kids in a drowning, it's tough. That sucks.
And then a call for the fatal shooting.
Right.
I mean, and I think those are, again, within hours of each other. I think they happen the same.
I can tell you the one wasn't done because I called my guy and said, hey, how you doing? Checked on my guy because obviously they pulled an 18-year-old. I didn't know it was an 18-year-old kid. Pull a person out of the lake and they're an 18-year-old kid. It's a lot different than pulling a 67-year-old guy or whatever.
It just is. It is.
It's the same, but it's different.
Yeah.
Family deals with it, but it's just 18-year-old. It's just different. So she had it under control. Her team was awesome. Unbelievable amount of work. I mean, we've done some things here and I love my team, but man, I don't know that we've done a drowning and a shooting in the same night. I can tell you we haven't. I mean, I don't know a sheriff that has. So hats off to Sheriff Finch and her team. That's incredible. So we're there to help. We would have went over and helped, do whatever we can, and her team had it under control. With
So you text her, you said, Friday night. Yeah. So you heard this stuff from from whomever. I mean, you're going to hear about this stuff.
Right.
And when you find out, is this standard operating procedure? We've talked before about how Burnett County and Barron and Wash, but we're all just, one big community around here. Is that common that you have noticed when other sheriffs there's something going on in Barron and you're getting a whole bunch of texts saying from other sheriffs, other politicians, saying, hey, what do you need? What do you need? We're here to help. Is that common? And then the second part is, why did you send that out to Tracy? Maybe your answer to your first question will answer the second question.
Yeah, I think it needs to be common. I think it is. It's getting more common. I think we all know that we push our people to their max sometimes, and I think we all just need a break. I think we have to depend on other people, and whether it's your PDs or your sheriff's department, you have to depend on them. They depend on you, and it has to be this back and forth. And again, we're not perfect at our jobs. We can't do everything right. The sheriff's department doesn't do everything right, but we can be there to help. We want to be there to help. And yes, it does happen. Why did I do it? I felt bad. You pulled two 18-year kids out of a lake, you should be able to decompress that before going on your next call. You can't do that. The politician or the cop in us doesn't let us decompress that. That's the sucky part of law enforcement or emergency or EMS
first
people.
Responder.
They don't get to decompress the call and say, oh, that just sucked, and sit around and talk about it, decompress it a little bit, and then before you're off to the next dead person. I'm like, Drapers. I mean, that's just crazy. So,
well, I find that interesting that, and I'm sure you also did say, if you need, I find it interesting that what you said when you text was, do you need, some help? But you brought up if your guys just need a break.
Right.
That part is interesting to me. That's a part that I think only a cop would understand. Like, I don't fully get it. I mean, I think I understand it, but you're looking at it from hey, I've been there before. This isn't a, hey, I'll come over necessarily just specifically to help an investigation, which we certainly would be able to do if you needed us to do it. But also, just, you want us to run some traffic or do anything to give your guys a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
I mean, that's empathy, I think. So I think that takes it to another level, and good for you. No kidding.
And I think we need to do, and none of us want to say, it's your Friday night, I'm not going to wreck your weekend too. And I think sometimes, and Scott Knudsen and Jeff Wallace and I have had this conversation over what happened in St. Clair County. We're not going to ask anymore. We're just going to get in our car and drive over there. And I almost did Friday night, but then you don't want to look like you're trying to take over. If you show up on this scene and you're like, why the hell are you here? I'm like, hey, I'm just here if you need somebody to go get you a bottle of water, because you don't want to ask somebody because you're out of people. So I think sooner or later, and I know Jeff Wallace would do this to me and I would do it to him. And maybe I need to do that for Trey. Maybe I should have gotten in the car and drove over there and just said, hey, can I go pick up pizzas? Can I do something? But again, we walk this line of this takeover and this. It's BS. It's BS. Put it that way. It's we've got to be there for each other. And again, I don't always do it right, and other people always don't do it right, but we can be better. And I almost got in the car and drove over there.
Well, if Tracy says no, I mean, you and I both know Tracy very well. If you send a text that says no, we've got this right now, then there you go.
But it's not. But you never know. You got it right now. But what if there's a traffic crash? It's Friday night of a Labor Day weekend. What if you have a traffic crash and your guys are all here? At least somebody I can do the simple calls. Yeah. I'm a simple cop.
You're a politician. You got a small little politician brain. But I could probably answer a call.
I can go on a crash. I can't do the report, but I have people that will help me do the report.
I got people for that, yeah.
And that's the problem. And so I almost took one of my patrol guys and we just said, let's just go for a drive over there. We could have turned around and came back, and I probably should have. But again, I don't know. It's something we got to start doing, and I know people would do it for me, and I need to do it for them. And so, I was sitting at home doing nothing Friday night. I could have went to Burnett County and worked all night. Wouldn't have mattered. I mean, so that's just, I don't know. We got off course a little bit there.
Well, that's fine. You could have also gone out and pulled over speeders if you're not doing anything. Jeepers. You're not supposed to get time off. Come on, man. Brian says he'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, bright and early. What if it's raining, Brian? That's what I got to know.
We'll find out from Dirk Miller later on about the
it's gonna rain.
forecast or something. Here's a Dimitri Hilton. There's a question I thought I saw in there. What do you think about what Minnesota did to limit the powers of school resource officers? How do we make sure that kind of nonsense doesn't sneak through Wisconsin legislator? So I don't know what this is about. So
I do.
please, okay, good. So explain what this is about, and then answer his question. But first, what is this?
So Minnesota passed a law that said you can't prone out students. Excuse me. And I haven't read the actual law, but in listening to the sheriff of Hennepin County do an interview with the news, and again, you only get part of the story when you watch the whole news. I'm sure she said a lot more, and I'm sure there was a lot more to the whole story, but they passed a law that says you can't prone out students, you can't use certain holds on students, even if they're in a fight with each other. And so what these sheriffs and police chiefs did is said, if you're going to pass this, and they passed this law, and it went into effect immediately, which is very unheard of to pass a law, and it goes into effect as soon as you snap your fingers. And the governor signed it and went into law immediately about keeping our students safe, and I get it. I was a school cop forever. Not forever, but for years. I love our school cops. First day of school, hats off to everybody. Good luck, teachers. Be safe in school zones, all that fun stuff. But so these cops, Minnesota cops, pulled their school cops and said, if we can't do our jobs effectively in the way we want to do them, then we can't be in the schools because we can't. It basically said, if you do this, you can be found guilty and you could be charged.
I'm sorry. I still don't fully understand this. So, did I just hear, by the way, that they pulled all their school resource officers?
Not a lot of departments did.
Okay, a lot of them did. And why again? I didn't understand
because they passed this law that says if you do X, Y, or Z, and it was something to do with positions, you couldn't prone a kid out on the ground. You can't.
It's like tactical takedown type things, or I'm just trying to understand this.
It all stems probably from the George Floyd incident. I don't know exactly, but
Okay.
It stems from something that you can't use certain holds, you can't do certain things.
Okay.
And the sheriffs and police chiefs said, no, our officers might have to do that. We have a force continuum that we follow. Let us follow our force continuum, which the legislature set, the force continuum. Don't restrict our deputies or our officers. And they pulled now I don't know if they're back. But yeah, a lot of them pulled from it. How do we happen? It doesn't happen here. You talk to your legislatures. I talk to Romaine and Dave Armstrong and other people all the time. A lot of people watch this show. And so I don't know how to keep it from happening. I don't think it would happen here. You never know.
Was the question. How do we make sure that this kind of, as Demetrius states, his words, kind of nonsense that doesn't sneak through the Wisconsin legislator. Do you agree with that it's nonsense?
I agree that it appears to be nonsense. And again, I don't know the whole story, but yes, it appears to be you're restricting law enforcement and saying if a law enforcement officer does this, then X, X, Y, or Z will happen. And to say you're going to charge an officer, they could lose their job. No cop, you can't put a cop in a situation where they may have to respond to two kids fighting and may have to prone one of them out on the ground or whatever, take them down, or it's for the safety of others, the safety of the teacher, the safety self-harm. I mean, the Minnesota sheriff from Hennepin County said, I was a school officer for 6 years. I had to do this to kids to save them from beating up a teacher, another student, or themselves.
Harming themselves or others, right? That's what I would assume.
And so we have to follow a force continuum. I just can't walk into your house and say, Ben, put the gun down and just throw you on the ground. I mean, if you're giving up, if there's bad cops out there, let's deal with the bad cop. But let's not pass a law that restricts the movement of our officers in the force continuum. It's more complicated than that, but I'm just trying to simplify it because I know we're going to run out of time. But it's a great question. I don't know that I would have the balls to take my cops out of my schools because I think they serve, but I also can't put them in a dangerous situation. If you said you can't only have one bullet in your gun, I don't think we can put our cops out there on the street. It's not fair to them. It's not the fight that we're not trying to fight the fight, but we're got to keep our kids safe and our teachers safe.
Well, I think that's the most important piece right here, at least from what I'm hearing. Now, granted, it's from a law enforcement, from a politician,
right.
Is that it's really for the safety of the person, safety of others, etc. This isn't about, okay, so here's the thing. you can't beat up kids anymore. Okay, we won't. I mean, but this is how we prevent bad things from happening. If there is a situation, it just seems kind of a logical, rational, reasonable thing to do. Is I'm trained to then make sure that person isn't harming themselves or others. And this is a very common tactic that everybody uses, a non-lethal tactic, right? It's not we're even shooting them with, what do they call those, rubber bullets or something. Like, I could totally see that. We're passing a law. You can't shoot somebody with rubber bullets or like kindergartners. What? Like, okay, I kind of get that. But that one seems a little silly. What? You probably don't know. I need to look into and find why in the world would Minnesota do this? Why would anybody do this?
Well, and I follow Liz Collins. She used to be a news reporter, and now she's written a book on everything. And she's a friend, and I've talked to her before about some other things. And she does some great stories, and she is frustrated. Her husband was a former Minneapolis cop. He's now retired. She's frustrated with law enforcement over in Minnesota. I mean, she'd be a great person to have on the show. Maybe we should have her on the show. She can talk about her book and talk about the questions like this, because that'd be awesome. And I think she'd probably come on. I'll email her and ask her.
That'd be great.
But and in Minnesota, somebody put, what do you expect? Look what they've done to their police departments in Minnesota. And I agree. I mean, you can't. They're losing people because they restrict them. No, I agree. You shouldn't do chokeholds. We have a chokehold policy in our department right here. Yes, and if a cop's beating up a kid, he should be fired. I agree 100% with that. But you can't restrict us from doing our job. And that's all the sheriff said is don't restrict us. Change a couple wordings. We'll put our cops back in the school tomorrow. So they're having maybe an emergency session this week on this. And but I can't imagine having some of those schools because our schools don't have as many issues as those schools.
Yeah.
And so that would be tough to not have it there. So
I agree. And Chess has a good comment here. We're in such an unfortunate time that even childcare programs have to have lockdown drills as a family childcare provider. I was required to create a lockdown drill for children within my own home. We have to do better for our children and teachers. We just have to kind of do better all over. I saw a story. I couldn't believe it. I remember where this was. Shoot. I saw it yesterday. Something about somewhere in America, there's a whole bunch of people, and they were chanting, like, Hail Hitler, and all these Nazi signs. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Like, what are we doing now? The worst person on the planet for the last century, we're now idolizing that person, and it's holy freaking hate. Like, what is going on with our world right now? This is so stupid. And Stacey, you're right. Like, we didn't have these problems. Like, our thing was like with Mom. It was always, all right, summertime or even at nighttime, be home for dinner and then be home by dark. Those are our only two things. And we didn't go and get in trouble. We didn't do horrible things. You just, you trusted everybody. And, there is something nice about being in this rural area. Right. And we've always tried to talk about, like, put a pin in it or describe it or be specific about what makes it great. One of them is the actual lack of anonymity. I lived in the Twin Cities in my 20s, and, nobody knows you. You can do whatever you want. Right. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing all the time. When a cop around here, they leave the job and they go somewhere, they go for dinner, people are like, hey, I know that guy. Hey, hello, officer so-and-so, because everybody knows, or school resource officers, liaison officers, everybody knows them. Now, you could be a cop in you said Hennepin County, it's like Minneapolis or something, and then you could leave and then go to, not that strip clubs are necessarily bad. If people want to, that's fine, whatever. But nobody knows you. You can kind of do whatever you want, but that's a nice thing, I think, about our communities where everybody knows pretty much everybody else. And I kind of like that. It kind of holds somebody accountable without them having to do something bad because if I go to a certain place or I do a certain thing or I act a certain way, even if I'm not working, people are probably going to find out about it.
Yep. And you can see that in kids and today, and you see a bunch of kids and they're like, I'm thinking about doing something dumb, not illegal, not like bad, but they're like, they see you and they're like, that guy knows who my parents are. If I do this, he's probably going to call him or tell him the next time he sees them.
I know. I love it.
That's the best part about it, and and that hurts sometimes. My kids have been targets because of who I am, and that sucks, but that's how,
I know. I grew up. We've had that conversation. I've given you examples in the past. Growing up with a dad as a sheriff. Right. Yeah, I was not very popular.
Yeah. So
specifically after the dad busted underage drinking part. Yeah, no, it's when you become a sheriff, your family actually becomes like sheriff's family. It's kind of ridiculous. Hey, I just want to ask you one real quick question. I don't want to forget it. We put up an article last Friday. Our headline was an insider article: criminal charges filed against Danbury man in Burnett County. Officer involved shooting. There was an officer involved shooting. I think it was like last year, maybe July or something. So it's been a long time, which is kind of weird that it's taken this long to finally get some charges. But that's a whole other thing. When you see like this, do you pay attention to these things on how the DA's office is going to file? I believe it's like 16 charges against this person. The cop obviously shot the individual, but this individual was the one being charged. And there's a lot of, again, you'd have to read the whole complaint. We pretty much put almost the entire thing on our website. But when you see this, do you pay attention? Are you looking at, obviously you're concerned about that individual, the officer, but do you pay attention to these for a different reason? Thinking that someday there's going to be an officer involved shooting in Barron, which there has been, that I want to see what does a DA charge? Where does this go? Is there a plea? Does a jury take this? What do they decide? Do you pay extra attention to these kinds of stories, even if it's not in Barron County?
Yeah, I can't comment on that because we did the investigation into that shooting. So yeah,
tell me before.
I don't want to comment on that, but I
how about any of these?
I mean, you bet. I look at Polk and Washburn and Burnett and stories that you put up because I also want to know what the other judges are doing, so I can talk to our judges. Maybe you got a good program, a good diversion program. Maybe you have they charge something totally different. I mean, we talked a lot about this with bonds and when it was before we had the judges had less leniency on bonds. Other judges are doing like, why is that judge doing that and we can't? And sometimes they say, well, they're not following the rules the right way or whatever, or they're interpreting the rule a different way. And as a judge, you get to interpret the rule. You get to interpret that. That's your role as a judge, is to interpret the law. And some people interpret it differently. I always think everybody's guilty. Obviously, we arrest people we think they're guilty, right. And we do our reports to make it. And some people interpret that. Juries do and say, no, you know what? They're not guilty. They didn't do this, or you didn't have enough evidence, or whatever the story is. So yes, we do follow that. I do follow that. That's one of my jobs, I think, as sheriff, to follow that and to try to create more diversion programs, better bonds, better cases, whatever it is. Maybe a department did something and like, yeah, I would use them next time. Maybe it was bringing in the state patrol to recon something that isn't a traffic crash. We're starting to use them more in criminal scenes because when you have a better picture up there, you can describe the scene better. So we recon criminal scenes more now.
Yeah.
So yes, we do follow those. And again, another thing Burnett County had to deal with on a busy holiday weekend.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so we're right up against our time. Dirk Miller forecast, our official weatherman. Last day of the heat. Oh yay! Highs and lower 90s. Severe thunderstorms later today and tonight. I heard this possible. Oh, there it is. Hail. I thought I heard something about that. Oh man. So this afternoon, Yeah. Possible hail, but then cooler, dry the rest of the week, 5 to 10, cool. All right, so last hot day, it sounds like for a while, but potential large hail and some storms this afternoon, so pay attention to your local weather, or just follow Dirk Miller. Like, just go to his Facebook page. You just tell him, just click on him. He's got everything. He's great. All right, what do you have? Let's wrap this up. What do you have coming up this week?
I don't know yet. It's Tuesday already, so
it kind of feels like a Monday.
Yeah, well, it's going to feel like a Monday. Everybody's slowly moving into this. So it's after the last holiday, kids are back in school. It'll be a lot of early nights for kids this week, getting into a new routine. So everybody will be a new routine around every job. All of our employees' kids went back to work. So it's different. It'll be a different routine around here. So we'll get back into it. Hopefully we'll go do some police work this week instead of politician work.
No kidding. And Stacy, it's fine. I mean, if people want to go to school, that's fine. I mean, we could have a different conversation about that sometime. I was just using it as an analogy. Please don't put this on CNN or Huffington Post or Washington Post. I was just saying, I do want to say like drugs or something, something that was kind of in the middle. Whatever. Right. I like the fact that somebody had mentioned somewhere in there too that it takes a village. Actually, I think it was Stacy as well. It takes a village, and that's so. Oh no, it was Jody. Pardon me. Yeah, me too. That's what I like about it around here. I absolutely love that, and I think that has a direct correlation in why, just a part of it, but a direct correlation on how we look at our law enforcement officers and how our law enforcement officers treat everyone else. I think it's easier to fall into some bad habits when you're in Memphis, Tennessee, and there's like a million people. I'm not saying that encourages officers to make bad decisions, but you got to agree, when everybody knows who you are, at work and outside of work, there's some accountability there. And for me too, as I run a media outlet, I've done stories on people that I know, friends of mine that I've had to do stories on. But it makes you a little more extra cautious, making sure you're doing everything the right way. Wouldn't you agree with that? That's a good thing.
It takes a village. It's what we do, and we got to do. Everybody can go do a better job today. Let's make sure our kids have friends at schools. Let's make sure they're safe at schools. Let's go make a difference.
Lastly, because I wanted to bring it up, I know we're late here, but that's right. Bears Packers this weekend. I believe as of this morning, the Bears are favored by not 1 point, but that's the line. Actually, it's technically -1, which means they're favored. It's weird that way. But it's pretty much a wash. Who do you got? Packers, which unknown. Jordan Love, how is he going to do? It's in Chicago against the Bears, who, I don't see them being that much better than last year, but who do you got?
I'll take the Packers.
Okay, I'll take the Bears. What are we betting on it? A compliment.
A compliment, okay.
Be on next week's show.
That's right.
All right. Well, in 1 week from now, you should watch the show where I will be accepting a wonderful compliment from Fitzy. All right, cool. Thanks so much. For Ben County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald, I'm Ben Dryden, and you've been watching Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy, presented by Professional Exteriors and Interiors. With 20 years of experience, this locally owned and operated business provides quality work both on the inside and on the outside of your home or business. Give Brian a call today. The number is right there on the screen, 715-520-2271. Fitzy and I will see you next week, and on this Thursday, I'll see all of you when I'll be chatting with Spooner Police Chief Mike Kronberger right here on our Facebook page at 8:30 in the morning. So until then, thank you for watching, and as always, have a blessed day.